Okay, I think we are ready. We are doing chapter 4 tonight. So do y'all like this being off one week? Like your chapter 3 homework is due this week, but yet we're on chapter 4?
System works great as far as I'm concerned.
Works good for y'all? Okay. I think I'm going to do this from now on then. See, usually on the first day, instead of just doing the syllabus and then doing chapter 1, we do the syllabus and then getting to know you, where everybody introduces themselves. Which works good for me because it helps me remember names better. But I like this better because we're getting through it quicker and we'll have more time and I don't have to stress about finding time for Enron. Wow, that's just like one big paragraph instead of having like actual learning objectives. That's just weird. So we're going to talk about privacy. So what's the Bill of Rights? It's like that all the way through, isn't it? Sorry, go ahead.
First 10 amendments to the Constitution.
Okay. What's the Fourth Amendment?
Right. To be secure in their persons, houses, and papers.
Okay. Unless a warrant has been issued upon probable cause. And that means that all the T's must be crossed and the I's must be dotted. Because literally, if they spell something wrong, it can be dismissed, and that's not good either. What's the right of privacy?
Right to be left alone.
So do we really have a right of privacy?
Yeah, it's part of the penumbra of Fourth Amendment rights. It's a legal term. It comes from the penumbra of an eclipse.
Okay. So let's say that someone leaks information from the NSA that says that the government has been spying on the U.S. people. Does that take away your privacy? Does that take away your Fourth Amendment?
Yes. Well, it doesn't take it away, it violates it.
But what if it's to keep you safe? What if it's to identify terrorists before they can attack and kill you?
Treat that.
Huh?
Like to treat that.
Different things to consider. Information privacy. Combination of communications privacy and data privacy. Communications privacy is the ability to communicate with others without those communications being monitored by other persons or organizations. Data privacy is the ability to limit access to one's personal data in order to exercise control over that data and usage. Did we used to have information privacy? Sure we did. You still had to protect all the personal information. You still had to protect all of the medical information. You just couldn't give it out to anybody. It's a lot more complicated now because everything's on the web. So are surveillance cameras worth the cost in terms of resources and loss of privacy given the role that they play in deterring or solving crimes?
That's it, yeah. Yeah, most of the time surveillance cameras are in public areas.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. We have cameras in our house. I didn't used to like cameras in my house. They're coming in very handy now. The reason that the cameras are in the house is because the alarms kept getting set off. And in order to not have to turn around and go home all the time, Sir Kenneth decided to install cameras so that he can verify that nobody came in the house, everything is good, and he can just tell the alarm company it's a false alarm and just turn off the alarm. Okay? So we have one in our kitchen that faces the garage door. And then we have one kind of in the entryway that faces the front door. And then the rest of them are pretty much outside. Okay? So the one in the kitchen, this is where the privacy comes in handy. So my mom's been sick for a week. She's been throwing up. No idea what's wrong with her. We were fixing to change. We took away some of the foods because we thought, okay, maybe it's the foods. We started going to her medications, saying, okay, well, we're going to cut out a couple different medications to see if maybe that's causing her to be sick, even though nothing has really changed. Even had a doctor's appointment set so that we could take her. We came home yesterday. One of the bottles of alcohol was sitting on the table. That was a full bottle of alcohol. And just, it was butter shots. Has anybody in here tried butter shots? It is sickeningly sweet. It is sickeningly sweet, okay? So we got the whole thing. We got the Irish cream and the butter shots so someone could try a buttery nipple. That's the name of the liquor. That's the name of the drink. They wanted to try it, so I bought the alcohol. And it's literally sat on the shelf since then because it's too sweet for us. So my mom's like, I didn't touch that. And of course my daughter, she's like, no, I don't like alcohol. She's only 16, but she's tried it. She don't like it. And we were like, she's like, no, I didn't do it. I was like, yeah, obviously she did it. But just so we could prove to her that she did it, because she thinks she can get away with lying as long as we don't catch her, we pulled up the camera, the trusty camera that's in the kitchen. Yep, you can see her. Every day around 8 or 10 o'clock in the morning, she would go in there and she would get into the alcohol and she would drink until she passed out, and then she'd be puking all night.
8 in the morning.
8 in the morning. And so since we discovered this, of course we told everybody in the family because I wanted them to know so that they could help keep an eye on her. But we also hid all the alcohol. So what do you think she did first thing in the morning this morning? She was looking for the alcohol. We have it on camera. She was looking for the alcohol. So, is that invasion of her privacy? Okay. So she's got dementia and she's got medical condition to where we need to really keep an eye on her. I'm like, 6 bottles. Literally. A bottle of Fireball. A bottle of Di Serrano, which I was really upset about. My Tortuga rum, which I can only get in Grand Cayman. Yeah, that's my rum cake rum. So I was very upset that that's gone now. And then the butter shots, the other, and then a chocolate cherry that I didn't like anyway. So I was
You just hear some Mad Dogs.
And then in the freezer we keep the Rumple Mints, which is like one of my favorites, but I can only handle like 1 shot at a time because it's such a high proof. Yeah, it was almost empty. Ken said it was a brand new bottle. So literally, I hid it all. And it was funny because at 8 o'clock, she went looking for the ones that were on the shelf. At 10 o'clock, she opened up the freezer and reached up there, and then it was gone. So she lost all of her alcohol. So I laughed. But at the same time, if we hadn't had the cameras, we couldn't have proved that she was the one doing it, even though she was the one that was the one puking. You would think that, you know, it's easy. But she wouldn't admit to it until we showed her the video showing that she did it. So, comes in handy. See, we solved her crime.
So even though she has dementia, she still thinks she needs to drink every morning? Like she doesn't forget not to go searching?
No, she only, I think the forgetfulness comes in handy more often when she's trying to get away with doing things.
Okay, so
She
she
was worse whenever she was at the assisted living.
Okay.
I mean, she literally couldn't even remember her birthday when she moved back in with us.
Was she a drinker before?
She and my dad used to drink a lot, but she didn't really drink. I mean, if you gave her something, she'd definitely drink it. But I mean, it could be that she was drinking all along. We just didn't notice it because, you know, we had drinks every once in a while too.
Sure.
So of course we're gonna be like, well, maybe I drank more. You know what I mean? Whereas we haven't been drinking in a long time now, so it's very noticeable, especially because we wouldn't leave empty bottles sitting on the shelf either. And literally all the front bottles were empty. And Ken was laughing because the bottle of wine, which was his bottle, not her bottle. Hers was the pineapple. His was the better one. I don't know what it's called now. The Zinfandel. But she was trying to open it, and she couldn't figure out how to get the cork out. Sorry. I laughed. I thought it was hilarious because I saw the foil when we were looking at all the bottles. We saw the foil lifted up, and I was like, yeah. Yes. I don't know how she thinks she can get away with it. The funny thing is that I came home on Monday, and there was an empty cup with something sweet inside, and I thought she had a chai latte, which is forbidden right now because she's supposed to be on a low-carb diet. Yeah, it was not chai latte. It was apparently, not Rumple Mints, it was apparently the butter shots and the Irish cream mix. It was just in a coffee cup that was about this big. She literally, Ken was watching her on the video, she was literally filling the cups filled with alcohol, and she'd go off and drink it. I'm like, I can't do that. That's just, ugh.
Like the whole coffee cup filled with, like, shot.
Thank you. Sorry, that was off topic, but yeah, that was my spying with the camera. But the cameras are handy in our neighborhood too because people steal stuff. And you know what? We haven't had anything stolen at our house, knock on wood. Okay, so we actually put one on the side of the house now too, so that we can actually see the gate and the side door. So if someone decides they're going to crawl through the doggy door, we can get them. Plus we have one in the garage so that we can see if someone comes in. So we're covered pretty much everywhere. We finally got the ones where you could see at night. So on the back patio and on the side of the house and at the front of the house, we have the night vision ones, which is nice. And they're smart too, so it actually recognizes when it's one of us.
He's a dog.
We did have a dog, but he wouldn't stop biting people.
Oh.
And after like the 12th time where he bit someone, which was a kid that was riding his scooter down the road, we had to say bye. Because even if we'd taken him back to the pound, they were gonna put him down just because. I mean, he wasn't doing it like attack. He would just run up, bite someone, and run away.
You say hi.
Yeah, the problem is that we'd already had someone file a thing once before when he didn't actually bite them. All it was is the other dog had jumped up on him and scratched them. But since they said that they were bitten on the back, in the middle of their back, by a dog, and you literally see the scratch on their back, they had to come and they had the whole rabies thing and the quarantine thing and everything. So if we had another one, it would not have been good. So we had to. We've been really broken up about it. Eventually, we might get another dog, but it kind of takes you a while to get past losing one. So haven't yet. That's why we still have the doggy door. That and the cats can use it. So. Fair Credit Reporting Act regulates the operations of credit reporting bureaus. That's a good thing. Does anybody check their credit? Y'all don't check your credit?
No, I don't have it.
It's like freeannualcreditreport.com. You should do it at least once a year, because if something is on there that's not yours, you need to be able to report it. And with identity theft as rampant as it is now, it's good to keep an eye on those things. Right to Financial Privacy Act protects the records of financial institution customers from unauthorized scrutiny by the federal government. Does not cover disclosures of private businesses or state and local governments. So, has everybody in here taken Principles of Information Security? Were you required to do dumpster diving?
No, she covered that because it was banned in the city ordinance.
Yeah, it didn't used to be banned, but it's becoming more and more so. I thought about having my students at Mid-Dell actually see if we can dumpster dive in the school, just to see what people are throwing away. I don't know, we'll see. But I made it voluntary whenever I taught the class, just because if they live in a place where they can get away with it, I told them to do it. If they don't, I said that they had to do something else, because
It's technically not.
Well, it depends, because there are
In some places.
there are some places that, I mean, I think it should be legal. Just because, especially for a school institution, hey, if they're actually throwing away stuff that they should not be, there should be checks and balances. Whenever we did it, the bank that used to be on the corner, it wasn't FNB at the time. I don't remember who was there first. I think it was Bank First, but I'm not positive. But we did theirs, and the little slips, like when they actually manually scan your card and they do the little copy of it.
Oh.
They threw away the little
Sorry.
Okay. I can't remember the name of it, but they threw away the little purple thing, the bluish purple thing. Yeah, the carbon. They threw away the carbon copies. Well, if you hold the carbon copy up to the light, you can see everything. You can see their name, their address, their credit card number, expiration date, everything was on that.
I said the colloquial term for it at my job. They call it the chunker.
So we were like, okay, well, technically, that's PII, because we had all their personal information. So, of course, then she had to go and report it to the bank, because this was my other sister's. I didn't do it in my class. And then we also, the other thing we found was that the title company down the street, which, yeah, it's down that way, they had an entire title in the trash, so it wasn't even shredded. It just so happened that it was a friend of my little sister's. So she had all their information. She was able to call them up and say, hey, your title company threw away your title with all your information in the trash. And she just brought it to him and gave it to him because, well, Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, bank deregulation law that repealed the Glass-Steagall law, financial services modernization, Requires financial institutions, companies that offer consumers financial products or services like loans, financial or investment advice, or insurance to explain their information sharing practices to their customers to safeguard sensitive data. Okay? There's a lot of laws. We're not going to go into a lot of them. Fair and Accurate Credit Transactions Act allows consumers to request and obtain a free credit report once a year from each of the 3 primary consumer credit reporting companies. Highly recommend that you take advantage of it. And just because one of them is clear does not mean all of them will be clear. There is a possibility that something's going to show on one and not the other. So keep an eye on those. HIPAA. Does anybody not know what HIPAA is? Has anybody never gotten a copy of the HIPAA regulations, the HIPAA law? So everybody's gotten that? So every time you go to the doctor and they try to give you a copy? Nobody else has experienced that? Okay, they're supposed to, unless you say no, you don't want it. If you go to the doctor, they're supposed to give you a copy of the HIPAA law. So if they're not, then that's not good. But I always tell them, nope, I don't want it. I already have it. I'm good. Because when
Seriously, sometimes I had my mom taking me to my house. For my mom to leave the emergency room. My mom's a physician. They told my mom to leave the emergency room so they could draw blood from me, and said it was a HIPAA violation for her to be in that.
what? Not if you give them permission to be in there.
Yeah, that's what.
I mean, it's kind of like when they give you your diagnosis or whatever. If you say it's okay for that person to be in there, it's okay for them to be in
She
there.
said that my mom had to leave the room, and then I had to give her permission without her in the room in case she was exerting undue influence over me. I just couldn't drive myself to the emergency room, so I called her up and had her drive me.
See, I've never heard that before. That's interesting though.
Like, it makes sense. You have to agree without the person in the room.
Yeah,
My mom's 5'2".
mine is too. And she could drink me under the table apparently. Or actually she couldn't because she was puking. Yeah, so that doesn't count. That was alcohol poisoning.
I mean, she's a physician. It was her hospital, so.
So maybe that's why. I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
It's weird.
because it was like their boss.
Yeah, who knows? They wanted to be sure that they were
Yeah.
following the HIPAA regulations so it didn't get reported back. So it improves the portability and continuity of health insurance coverages, reduces fraud, waste, and abuse, simplifies the administration of health insurance. American Recovery and Reinvestment Act contains provisions for electronic health records, which is very important. I know that when I worked at the lab, we had a lot of fun because we would actually go through, and if we had someone with a really cool name, we'd actually print their label, and we had a collection of them. So was that good?
Wait, I'm sorry, what's the question?
We would, when we saw someone with a really cool name, we would print the label and keep a label.
Like fucking married? I had a friend.
Like Candy Cane. Candy Cane was my favorite. Her name was literally Candy Cane.
What's her first name?
Candy.
Oh, okay.
Last name was Cane. Yeah. And so, we literally, one guy had a stack this tall of them. Me, I didn't stack mine. I just kind of put them up different places. But I mean, some of them had test names on it. So is that good? I mean, most of them were generic names, but not all of them. So, because some were specialty tests, like for cancer antigens and stuff. Well, what if they don't want someone to know that they're being tested for that, or HIV? So, I don't know. Probably wasn't the smartest thing, but you had to work for the lab to actually get in there. So we figured it was probably okay. It's not like we took them home with us. That'd be weird. Bans the sale of health information, promotes the use of audit trails and encryption, and provides rights of access for patients. So when you log into something on the web, is it confidential?
Should be.
So like if you're at work and you access your bank.
No, it worked.
No, not
I
at
had no
work.
expectation of privacy at work. You're right.
Okay. So
I
they
mean,
can
for
tell
the
the
companies, for the company's interest, they should probably have their system secured.
So-
but it's not. But like for your information to the company, you don't have privacy there.
So I told my students, I was like, anything that y'all do here, they can see. I was like, so if you go to YouTube, they know it. If you go to Facebook, they know it. Now, will they be able to see everything you've done? If it's secure, probably not.
VPN.
But they are going to know that you were there, that you went to those sites. That's why when we were talking about the fact that they could track things and that certain things were blocked at school, like the word sex, one of my students stupidly decided he was going to Google sex to see if it was blocked.
Why would sex be banned at a school?
Sex is blocked from the internet at school.
Seems like that would be the place that you would want kids to find out about. Whatever. Sorry.
Well, they don't want them to be able to look, Google sex, and get pornography. Because if they bring up pornography, that could be a lawsuit for the school.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
So,
you could probably find porn and sex. The other terms come to mind, though.
Yeah, well, sex is one that's banned. So, I mean, I don't know. But he said that he Googled it and he wouldn't go to it. But I was like, you don't want to do that because then if it gets flagged, then, I mean, they're going to come looking for us. And he's like, they wouldn't be able to find us. I was like, yeah, they would.
Like,
Okay, so,
types it in, press enter, someone instantly kicks down the door.
well, it wouldn't be that close because, you know, it's a central mid-Dell school system, people that are tracking all that. But, like, even our computer names there, it starts out MDTC 104, that's my room number, and then the serial number of the computer that they're on. So that IP address is going to tell them exactly which computer it is that it's with.
Some of the other schools, like the high schools, they don't have like such specific like the room numbers. They just have the serial numbers, so then it's harder to locate stuff. I know that there's one time I was there for Mr. Clark and everything. He showed us, I think it was a screenshot of it was cities, and it showed like they had really generic names for theirs, like Dell Computer 3.
Oh, wow.
Such that, yeah. So on that'd be harder to find, but for that, like the tech center, yeah, they find
I really thought that they'd be the same all
no,
across.
it's different. I don't remember exactly, but it was very generic names.
Okay, well, that's pretty interesting.
Do we do that here at Rose? Like,
Put the names that way?
well, no, I mean, like, I was thinking about accessing my bank account, like earlier today, on this network.
As long as your bank account is secured,
Right.
you should be fine.
I'm thinking
ban
that,
anyways.
right,
It's only if, I mean, they're going to be able to see that you went there,
right.
but
They're not gonna
chances
track
are they're not going to be going through everybody's transactions unless they're looking for something specific.
Right.
So school might be a little different, just because if they see that there's abuses in place, they're probably going to look because it's a school setting. There's high school kids, and they have to be uber.
If you're transmitting your password over the Rose State College guest network, you can very easily have once it reaches our gateway, our access point, then it's encrypted. But between your computer and the wireless router that doesn't even have WEC on it, let alone WPA.
But if it's a secure website, then he should be fine.
Between the router and his computer, he's transmitting his password and username clear.
Right.
Yeah, but they tried. We've done where we captured traffic that way, and it didn't
Yeah.
come out. It didn't come out.
Yeah, but also
So-
students aren't going to be using the guest.
No, they're not. Oh, I don't. I use
Yeah,
the official one.
Yeah, I mean, the freshers use the private.
Yeah.
Students can use public, which is still secure.
So, FERPA and COPPA. Oh, hold on.
The other
So-
COPPA.
Huh?
There was remember that COPPA that they tried the copyright and online
Oh,
protection act?
yeah.
It was COPPA.
Yeah, not
COPPA.
COPPO. Not COPPA. Okay, so Federal Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act assigns certain rights to parents regarding their children's educational records. Children's Online Privacy Protection Act aims to give parents control over the collection, use, and disclosure of their children's personal information over the internet. Does not cover the dissemination of information to children. So there's a lot of parental controls that you can put on the computers and such for the children. So FERPA is kind of a pain in the butt whenever you're teaching, especially high school, because it's different. It's like I have 18-year-olds that are still in high school, but I can still give the parents the information because the parents are living, I mean, the child is living with the parents and they're claiming them on their taxes. Now, if they were not living with their parent and they were not being claimed on their taxes, then they could say, no, I do not want my mom to have access to my records. And we would have to abide by it. Thankfully, that has not happened because that would be bad. But like my daughter was living in Norman and she was like, oh, you can't have access to my records. I was like, well, I still claim you on my taxes. So I can do that. She didn't like it, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, so let me make sure that's it. Okay. Do you feel that information systems to fight terrorism should be developed and used even if they infringe on privacy rights and violate the Privacy Act and other such statutes? That's kind of like what we talked about earlier, but I want opinions.
I think most people are willing to sacrifice a little bit of privacy for a little bit of security.
I'd say yes, because I feel more secure knowing somewhere. Such as if I go to a concert, I feel a bit more secure that would be like a target of the terrorist attack.
I think that terrorism is probably a lot less likely to happen. I mean, I say this having been raised in the Middle East, born in Saudi Arabia, speaking Arabic. Arabic was my first language. I'm a lot more worried about some incel that's at this school, coming to school with an AR-15 and shooting up, you know, the girls' volleyball team because he can't get laid, than I am about somebody from, you know, Afghanistan coming and setting off a car bomb, at the Performing Arts Center. So I mean, you know, there's a tension between privacy and security, and there always has been a tension between the two. And the founders of our country, the framers of our Constitution recognize that. That's why they gave us the Fourth Amendment and why they put in a provision for issuing warrants. The King of England used to do what were called general warrants, which meant when they were looking for something, they could go to everybody's house. And that's why the Fourth Amendment says that the place to be searched has to be particularly described, and the thing that the cops are looking for also has to be particularly enumerated. They're not allowed to just do a fishing expedition. So I think that tension exists.
Yeah, so like if they're looking for, say, evidence for a murder or something, and they find an illegal substance, they're not allowed to do anything with it.
No, they are. If
They just have to get a different warrant.
no, if that's called incident. It's finding something that's incident to another investigation. However, if the warrant that they issued was not correct, if it had the wrong address or the house was described improperly, and then they found something, that would be called fruits of a poisonous tree. And that's a fairly well-developed legal concept, where if they find something on the basis of information that they provided to the magistrate that was incorrect information, everything subsequent to that will be dismissed.
Like a coerced confession.
It's under the broad rubric of what you're talking about. It's slightly different in the legal codification of it all.
I mean, yeah, like I think that you could also the developing use. I think they should, because like even when the FBI came out and they were like, oh yeah, by the way, Nicholas Cruz was on the watch list, but hey, we didn't act on it. Like he even made videos saying he was gonna shoot up at the school. He made a video before he get in the Uber to go to school, and he's like, hey guys, Nicholas Cruz here. I'm gonna shoot it up. I'm gonna take off my cast. Let's go. He literally made videos of that. And it's like, okay, well, we're not going to act on that then.
I wonder what it's like to go to school nowadays as a high school. I mean, back when I went to schools, I went to a British school, so we didn't have that concern, but it must be bizarre to have to go to school every day. And I mean, I would be genuinely concerned, because now it happens, almost every day, or sometimes twice a day. They've had 3 of them in one day before. So, yeah, it would scare me.
It's really weird because, I mean, whenever we went to school, you had a fire drill, you had a tornado drill.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it.
Not an active shooter drill.
And the only time we ever had, we got out of school because of something, it was because, there was a bomb threat. And it was usually a pipe bomb that some student had, made and was goofing off in their garage.
Or didn't exist. They were just trying to get out of a test.
Yeah.
Now I don't think any student would even do that, because we get it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, Yellow City, there's one time that happened, but they didn't even cancel school and there's a threat. Remember that?
I think I do remember that.
Yeah, some freshman on the bathroom wall was like he's gonna blow up the school and everything. They never told any of the students, none of the parents. They just let it slide by night.
Yeah, it's just weird because
They
whenever-
have to take that seriously now, though, because the
I
kids
know.
actually do blow up school.
But whenever I started working at Middale Technology Center, you have not only those and the earthquake drill, which I think is bizarre because my students can't all fit underneath the desk, which is where they're supposed to go. I have like 6'5" students, and they expect them to fit under the. Now these desks they could probably fit under.
Yeah, but are they like the
Ours-
individual desks?
No, ours are long, but they're a lot shorter, and they just can't. They would have to lay flat on their belly. Well, then half their body's gonna stick out. So I mean, they literally can't. So I told them, I was like, if you want to do something, just go sit underneath the doorway or something, because I don't know what else to tell them. Because there ain't no way they're gonna fit. But then we have intruder on campus, which the first time they did it, I had absolutely no clue what in the world it was, because it was just, they were saying IOC, 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 and I was like, what in the world is IOC? And my students were like, intruder on campus, and so it's like, oh,
Do you have keys to this door, for instance?
this door?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
can you lock this door? We would have to barricade it.
I can lock it, yeah, you just
Yeah,
turn
there's
it
lots
on
of
there.
inside.
But the problem is they can just shoot out the window, and then they can just unlock the door and come in.
Yeah, I mean, they go, it's the old joke, you know, like, when you learn how to scuba dive, the joke they tell you is that you don't have to outswim the shark, you just have to outswim your scuba partner. You know, so that's the same principle, we don't have to, you know, be Fort Knox, we just have to be not the easiest class.
Yeah, no, what we would have to do is if we knew that there was an intruder on campus and we were hunkering down in here, we would go lock the door, and whoever locks the door, we would turn off the lights so that it looks like nobody's in the classroom, because there's a lot of empty classrooms, and then the rest of y'all would go that back corner and just hunker down.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, literally, I mean, that's the kind of thing you have to think about nowadays. But, I mean, ours, we have to go to a back storage room, which has 2 exits. So if they came in one classroom, then we could go out. See, the thing is, it has those little wires that go across, so it makes it harder for them just to break in the window. It's the same way with our door in our classroom. But we go to that back room, and it's like we're crammed in like sardines because there's 16 of us, and it's a little bitty closet, and so it's not fun. And then the other one's a lockdown drill, and that's so if someone is evading police, or like there was a robbery or something in the area, or a car chase and the person got out of the car and is on foot, they do all of the surrounding schools on lockdown, and that's just where you make sure all of the outdoor doors are locked so that nobody can get in. Of course, we have to lock our actual hallway door too, just in case the person's already in the building. Yeah, that's the kind of things that we have nowadays. It's crazy.
I was at OU when that guy set off that bomb outside of, on the North Oval, no, it was the South Oval, that's where it was. He was a chemistry student or an engineering student? In any case, he built a bomb, and it was during a OU game, and he set off the bomb, committed suicide that way. But they have video of him trying to get into, I think it was called Gaylord Stadium, Memorial Stadium, trying to get in, and one of the security guards is like, "Nah, you can't come in until another 30 minutes, and then after that halfway point of the game, then anyone can just walk in." But if he'd come back in 30 minutes, he would have been able to get in. And now, because of that, OU has decided that there's no readmission, even with a ticket, you can't have readmission. They're afraid people will go in, hang out for a minute, come out to their car, grab their bomb, and then walk back in and blow something up.
Wow.
Sounds far-fetched until you realize that people actually do it.
Yep. Wow. Scary though. Yeah, I think the first time my daughter said that they were having like active shooter practices, I was like, what? But they do them at Tinker too. They do them at Tinker. I mean, literally, they walk around. The armed forces walk around with a gun.
The difference with Tinker, though, is
They did that here last semester.
Did they? Well, one person almost had a heart attack because they caught him in the bathroom. The thing is they tell you. They tell you between this time and this time, there's going to be an active shooter drill in this area.
Yeah.
So you know ahead of time that this is going to happen,
Yeah.
unless, of course, you were gone and you didn't get the email because you can't take computer home or whatever. That's different. But I mean, usually you know that it's going to happen, especially when it was in 3001. Now I have come to work in the morning and found that the building was locked because they were doing an active shooter exercise, which I was not happy with, because then you're locked out of the building and you're like, where do I go? So,
Tinker's doing
Last semester they were shooting blanks.
They have armed guards at Tinker.
I like their big voice system though. Because back whenever that happened to me and I was locked out, we had no idea why the building was locked. We thought someone just forgot to unlock it or something, or someone was being mean and locked us out. But now they actually say, active shooter or whatever, and they say suspect has been seen at such and such building, so you know kind of where they're at.
Yeah, sure.
At least if you know the building.
You're talking about like the system where they play taps and revelry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't used to have that though. Well, I mean, they had that, but they didn't use it as a big voice system. Now they do like these big voice system tests, and you're like, I can't hear it inside. But if you're outside, you can. So.
Yeah, I was there for September 11th. It was freaky.
Oh yeah, I'm glad I wasn't there for September 11th. That would have been scary.
That was in 3001 in the F-100 fighter engine section, the north section. I was a little bit scared. It's a big building.
It is a very big
target,
building.
you know.
Yes. Wow. Communications Act established by the Federal Communications Commission to regulate all non-federal government use of radio and television broadcasting, interstate telecommunications, and international communications that originate or terminate in the U.S. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, describes procedures for the electronic surveillance and collection of foreign intelligence information. Title III of the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act regulates the interception of wire and oral communications. Allows law enforcement officials to use wiretapping, but they usually have to have a warrant to have wiretapping. Yeah, known as the Wiretap Act. Here's another one for electronic communications. I wish they had the years on there. That would have been nice. So you could see the progression of them. Maybe I'll go in and I'll edit them sometime. Why do employers monitor workers? Do you think they should be able to do so, and why not?
Yeah, they're paying for your time, so they want to make sure that you're.
Do you or do you not sign an acceptable use policy whenever you log in?
Yeah.
When you start any company. My students were like, nope, haven't seen that. I was like, you not only signed one for my class, but when you had orientation, they gave you another one that you signed. I was like, trust me, if you're in my class, you signed it. Except for the person who started Friday, and that's different. But the high school students, they don't read what they're writing. So I made them actually do research and look up acceptable use policies and write me what it said. One person read the first paragraph and tried to pawn that off, and I was like, yeah, that didn't work for me.
Yeah, we did this on patent principles.
Oh, you did in principles?
Yeah.
It's
We
important.
wrote an acceptable use policy for a made-up company's IT department.
It's liability issues. If they don't monitor their employees are out there, I don't know, for the sake of argument, let's say building a porn site, using their employer's internet, and there's a liability issue.
Mm-hmm. It was like we used one from the Sands Institute as an example, and they're like, well, it doesn't really say what the punishments would be. It was vague, and I was like, well, that's because there's different levels. They're like, what? I was like, okay, so the employee that's goofing off and is playing on Facebook instead of doing his work, do you think that's bad? No, they're like, yeah. I was like, okay, what about the employee who's searching for porn and has porn all over his computer at work? Is that bad? Yeah. I was like, do you think both of those are going to have the same punishment?
For downloading copyright stuff on Word
Okay.
Black Hole.
And I was like, okay, what if you have another person who's downloading child porn on the computer? Do you think that's going to be the same punishment? I was like, no, they're going to be different punishments for each one. I was like, so they can't say, okay, well, it's harder to say, okay, well, there's this one level where you're going to get this, and there's this one level where you're going to get this punishment, and there's another one where we might actually, you'll be in jail. Because it's harder for them to specify exactly. So they just say there's going to be a punishment or there's going to be consequences if you do this. So I had to explain that to them because they're high school students.
Yeah, and that way they can decide the punishment on a case-by-case basis.
Exactly, because one, it's going to depend on if you've ever had an offense before, what your usual reviews say, and so on and so forth. So, anybody else? Because they actually tell you that they're monitoring. It's just most people don't read the acceptable use policy to where they know that you're being monitored. Or they're like, oh, it's going over the internet. They're not going to be able to see what I'm doing. So I can't wait till we get to Wireshark in my class so I can actually show them, okay, this is what I can see. So yes, you can see it.
These are people in this class, a lot of the people in this class are gonna be the ones whose job it is. Just to look to monitor those.
Exactly.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but if you have a problem with that, then it's probably a wrong program.
Exactly. You're probably in the wrong field because that could very well be your job. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I started out in IT. I didn't actually get into the security aspect of it other than instructing users on how to keep their information safe and not to click on things that they shouldn't be clicking on and that kind of thing. Same thing I do at school. Pretty much the exact same thing I do at school. But we're going to try to set up like a, not ethical hacker, but catch the flag type thing between the technology centers so that we can do kind of like an ethical hacker. Red team, blue team. Yeah.
Nice.
We'll see. But I mean, it'd be a first for me because I've never actually competed in one of those. So I think it'd be kind of interesting and be fun. And the students are like, well, we might not win. I was like, it doesn't matter if you win. You're going to learn something regardless. It's kind of like doing Cyber Patriot. You don't have to do Cyber Patriot. Are we going to win Cyber Patriot? Probably not. But you're learning a heck of a lot of information that's going to benefit you when you actually get out in the workforce.
It's a really good team building exercise too, instead of the stupid things where you have to fall backwards and, that bullshit.
Yeah. Those are
Build camaraderie.
Well, I tried to make them work in teams this semester, and it hasn't worked out quite like I anticipated because there are just several students in my class that just do not want to do anything. And they literally sit back and let one person do all the work. And then they complain because that person's been out sick for 3 days. Well, you know what? You've had 2 weeks to get it done. So I don't feel sorry for you because, you're supposed to be working on it as a team. That's what a team does. If one person can't be there, the others pick up the slack and they continue on. And they're like, well, that's not right. I was like, well, that's the way it is in the real world. You can't just say, oh, I can't work on this project that you've assigned us because so-and-so is out sick. It doesn't work that way. What if someone on your team died? Are you just going to quit the project altogether because you've lost one of the members of your team? I mean, that happened out at Tinker recently. Well, I guess it wasn't recently because it was when I first started out at Tinker. But I mean, when I was in AFL-CMC, I think that's
The logistics.
Yes. When I was out over there, I had like 400 users, and one of my users was in a car accident on his way back from lunch, and he didn't make it. And so, of course, then, it came to me, and they had to get all the information off the computer for him because they had to have it. But, I mean, they didn't just stop working just because they lost one of the members of their team. They couldn't. You have to keep going. So, but anyway, that was off topic. But yes, they should monitor the employees because they're liable. If someone's doing something illegal on the company computer and they don't stop it, the company's liable. So. Do you think that law enforcement agencies should be able to use advanced surveillance cameras and data from vehicle data recorders in a court of law? Why or why not?
Depends.
I mean, it's come in handy recently with police shootings and various things where they were able to look at the recorders from the cars and things, and they can actually tell what exactly happened. Was it the officer or was it the individual?
Yeah, and in Russia, you have to have a dash cam to get car insurance because the drivers in Russia are absolutely crazy.
This isn't quite related to this, but I was reading about different laws in Europe, and one of the laws in France is, I don't know if it's still accurate, but I mean, according to the website, in order to drive in France, even if you are a visitor to the country, you must have.
Are you talking about the high-vis jacket and that little? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You have to have one of those alcohol monitoring devices that the breathalyzer. You have to have one in order to drive in France.
You're supposed to have a high-vis jacket and not like it's like the
is that for
orange, the orange.
Is that for like bicycle riding or bike riding or?
No. If you're just driving in France, and I know this because I had to rent a car to get back from Brussels, but you have to have a high-vis vest, and then you have to have those little road triangles with like flashers on them, and
in your car in case you have like a.
Yeah.
Huh.
It has a list of all the different things that you're supposed to have, and this was in 2008 when I had to get back from the Anyway, yeah.
Well, one thing I learned also, which is totally off topic, that it's illegal in Venice to feed the pigeons. And they passed that law in 2008 because they had such a problem with the pigeons and everybody kept feeding them. And so I sent it to Ken because when we were in Venice, he was feeding pigeons. I actually have pictures of him feeding the pigeons. It's a €700 fine.
They shit on it's the pigeon shit that's the problem. They shit on the statues and stuff like that, and then the pigeon shit destroys.
He absolutely loved it. Me, I was sitting there going, I don't want them all over me. But yeah, that was one of his favorite things is feeding the pigeons. So, but yeah, we didn't know it was illegal. There was no sign saying do not feed the pigeons. I guess they expect you to know. But there were so many people feeding the pigeons that, I mean.
Maybe they should put up some signs.
Yeah. But I mean, the entire area there at St. Mark's Square, it was like this big, huge open space. And there was like thousands of people literally feeding pigeons and stuff. I mean, maybe not all of them were feeding pigeons. There's thousands of people, hundreds of them probably feeding the pigeons. Yeah, apparently Venice gets so many visitors that it's sinking. But yeah, cruise ships are no longer allowed to go there. It wasn't too long after we went that they said cruise ships couldn't come anymore. But I mean, they're very particular. You have to be I think you have to be tugged by a tugboat when you go in, just so that there's no wake. But I guess the amount of people that the cruise ships brought in, the island was sinking. So they finally said no. They can do it.
The way the cruise ship raised the water level slightly, or
I don't know.
just because I wouldn't think the weight.
All I know is the
would
water
push
was
land
disgusting.
down.
Has anybody been to Venice?
Yeah.
The water is disgusting. It's
A
like
lot of times the cruise ships are banned because the cruise ships will dump
oh really?
effluents and heavy oil. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know. If that's
I
the
heard
case.
that it was because they just couldn't have the people that many people there anymore. So, I don't know. It was too crowded for us. We didn't like it because you couldn't move. There was just too many people. But we apparently went during the height of tourist season when most of the businesses that didn't need to be open actually close and go on vacation because they don't want to be around there.
August.
Yes.
Florence is better. Go to Florence.
We went to Florence.
Did you tell me about it?
It was a cruise, yeah. Florence and Pisa. It was awesome. I was worn out at the end of Pisa because we went all the way to the top of the tower, which wasn't all that great.
It's just.
But we had just gone. We went to Marseille the first day, and so we went to Avignon and we walked through like this castle and everything. There was a ton of walking.
Like Marseille and France.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the cruise ship left Marseille and went into Italy, and we went to Florence and Pisa, and then we went into, I think Rome was the next one, and so we went to the top of the Basilica at that one, and both of them you're like leaning like this when you're walking up. And then after that, I think it was Naples. And of course, our driver dropped us off at the top of Positano, so we could walk down the stairs to go down to Positano, and then of course you have to walk all the way back up. And so it was more walking than I'm used to, and I was dead. So we actually canceled our excursion in Sicily. Well, one of them, we had two of them booked because we couldn't do any more walking. We chose to go to the volcano. It was awesome. Croatia's beautiful too, if you've never been. That was probably one of my favorite ports of all of them that we went to. National security letter compels holders of personal records to turn them over to the government. Pen register records electronic impulses to identify the numbers dialed for outgoing calls. Tap and trace records originating number of incoming calls and particular phone number. Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act requires the telecommunications industry to build tools into its products for use by federal investigators after obtaining a court order to intercept communications. A little different now, isn't it? It's not really, because if they want to tap the information, since most places, I mean, who here has a home phone? Okay, one person. Okay, so we have telecommunication stuff in my classroom. I'm getting rid of it. Anybody know why?
It's not very relevant anymore.
Exactly, and I was told that they have it so that if people do like the Skills USA stuff, then they could do the telecommunications. But I'm like, okay, it's kind of it's becoming an obsolete thing, so do I want to waste the time to teach it?
My nephew didn't know how a rotary.
See, and I just don't get that.
His grandparents, or his grandparents have a rotary telephone as a backup for when the power goes out to sticks, and he was trying to press the button.
And it didn't work very well. See, my ex really likes rotary phones, and so he has had a rotary phone pretty much the entire time my kids are growing up. So they all know how to work a rotary phone. But it's funny because if you go to London at Universal Studios, they have a payphone. Anyone want to guess why they have a payphone? Do I have any Harry Potter fans in here? Okay, so.
Doctor Who.
Not Doctor Who. Harry Potter. Okay, so in London, in the book, where do they go in book 5, near the end? Okay, obviously, Ministry of Magic.
Oh.
How do they enter the Ministry of Magic? They go into the phone booth and they dial 62442, and it lets them in. Well, if you go into the payphone there, you can enter 62442, and it gives you a different message each time you call that tells you why the Ministry of Magic and a visitor's entrance is closed. But it's funny because some people go in there and they have absolutely no clue what to do. I mean, because it's a rotary phone. So you have to actually know that you have to turn it. And some people annoy me because they take so long because they can't figure it out. So that's when I just want to yell at them.
I mean, rotary phones aren't very intuitive.
They're not hard. All you do is you stick your finger in it and you turn it. It only can turn one way.
It's easy, but if you've never seen one before, it's not very easy to figure
They're
out.
not intuitive, but I mean, for Christ's sakes, there's not too many things. You can pick up the thing and you can hit it with it, and other than that, you can spin the dial.
I know. I mean,
it's more or
you
less.
should be able to figure it out, but I guess some people just don't have that much smarts. But
Yeah, the sound, just the force.
But I drove Ken nuts when we were there because I was trying to listen to all of them and record them with my cell phone so that I could hear all of the different messages, but he was getting impatient because the line was growing behind us. So, yeah. I got to listen to 5 of them, and they were all different. I don't know how many there are. I think this next time I'm going to listen every day so I can try to see how many there are. I wanted to get the Rogue Bludger one recorded, but I guess that was the very first one. And I didn't realize that they were different. So when I called it back so I could record it, it was something totally different. One was an atmospheric, the atmospheric charm was off, and so they had to close. And I don't remember. There's all sorts of stupid things. It was funny. I was laughing. Ken was like, "Are you done yet?" No. I had fun though. U.S. PATRIOT Act, uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. Increase the ability of law enforcement agencies to search personal records. NSL gag provision prohibits NSL recipients from informing anyone that the government has secretly requested an individual's records. Do you think that the installation of stalker software on suspect cell phones should be authorized for law enforcement agencies? If so, under what circumstances should such use be permitted? And if not, why?
You're just a suspect. You haven't been, accused. Yeah, well, a suspect, you haven't been indicted of a crime. And so they can't prove that you've done anything wrong, and so you shouldn't be punished for not doing it.
What if you have a really good suspicion that this suspect is the correct person? And the only way that you're going to
be arrest them, and then you can put something.
Doesn't always work quite like that.
I mean, it's kind of a.
Because you also don't want to let them know that you really think that they're the suspect too, because then they might destroy evidence that you need.
I mean, at different levels of an investigation, you normally have different burdens of proof, different standards of proof, like reasonable suspicion or what's the next one? There's reasonable suspicion, probable cause, and there's one that's higher than probable cause. So there's various burdens of proof, and at each one of those burdens, the cops are allowed to do more and more invasive searches or questioning, things like that. So the question is kind of
Swirly.
framed.
Yes. And in a court, it's like the last one is beyond reasonable doubt, right?
Yeah, but
That's
I'm
not
talking
like,
about the investigatory
Yeah.
foundation.
that's at the end.
It'll come to me. Moving on.
So y'all think they shouldn't be able to install it?
We should-
You think they should be able to? Okay.
It depends.
I think if they would be allowed, it would have to be pretty strict circumstances.
Yeah, there's already so much stuff that records stuff already, like Alexa and everything. There's already stuff that records so much audio.
I know, and stuff like that. Do you think that that's confidential, and do you think that's an invasion of privacy? Yeah, I wasn't happy when
I mean,
I bought it.
I wasn't.
So get that way.
I wasn't happy when Ken brought one
on
home.
all the time.
I know. I know. I wasn't happy when Ken brought it home because I was like, "Ee." I mean, it's not like we talk about anything that would be considered illegal anyway, but it's just the fact of the matter. We were watching.
You can turn it off.
We were watching a movie the other night, and the guy on the TV said something, and Alexa was like spouting off all this information from what she picked up that the actor on the TV said, and so she was just giving us a lot of more information. But if we ask a question, she's like, I don't know, we'll have to search for that, or something like that. So it's like, Ken likes to ask her what the weather is going to be like. And it was funny because there was one day she was like, it's going to be clear today. And I looked outside, I was like, maybe it's sprinkling. And he was like, Alexa? Yeah.
Do you tell Alexa thank you?
I have not really asked Alexa anything to tell her. Now, I did Siri on my phone when we used to ask questions all the time. Yes, I would tell her thank you.
I heard something on NPR on the way over here about how people interact with technology, and they designed this study where they have these little robots that move around and interact with people, and then they get people to get a hammer and then smash them.
People wouldn't do it.
They're just, it's collections of wire. I mean, it's not a living thing,
People are very social.
Yeah,
and empathic.
they have the same reaction to smashing a little robotic whatever, that they were interacting with, that they would have to like smashing a gerbil or something. Although some people get off on smashing gerbils. Odd. But they were talking about how they did that study, and then they transferred it over to start studying how many people tell Alexa thank you after she tells them the weather or sets a timer for their creme brulee or whatever,
I mean, how do you think we domesticated wolves as sort of humans?
So how many people said thank you? Did they say?
I we might be a whole before I
Oh.
got to the end of it.
So is that a book that you're listening to?
No, it's NPR. It's National Public Radio. They call it
I imagine it would have been like quite a bit for them to even bring up that study.
I
It's
know.
like if it
It's
was
probably
hard
more
for
than
anybody, they wouldn't even brought it up.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I liked telling Siri thank you just because to hear her response after. I mean, because sometimes it was a good response. That and she always says, "You're most welcome, Virginia," or something like that. And that was kind of. It wasn't just because I was trying to say thank you to a computer. It was because I wanted to hear her response.
I think the reason why we say thank you too is just like it being
It's a habit.
human voice, yeah. And then, if you're talking to another human, obviously, manners, or depends who it is, you're gonna say thank you.
And also, for when Alexa takes over, you want to be on their good side.
Is that kind of like Skynet?
Yeah, it's exactly what it's got.
We were talking about that in class, and they're like, "They're gonna take over."
It's really not a new concept. I was reading a philosophy book, and they're talking about Plato's cave. I mentioned this in my email.
Yeah, the allegory of the cave.
Yeah, and the allegory of Plato's cave about how what the nature of reality actually is, and the Matrix did it really well, but it wasn't a new idea. Anyways, moving on.
Absolutely loved Matrix. I don't know how many times I watched it. Okay, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act granted NSA expanded authority to collect international communications as they flow through U.S. telecommunication network, equipment, and facilities. Fair information practices set of guidelines that govern the collection and use of personal data, transborder data flow of personal data across national boundaries. Okay, some more. Freedom of Information Act. Has anybody heard of that? No?
Sure. You should all-
So does that mean you can say anything you want?
The Freedom of Information Act has to do with government records.
Okay. But does that mean that I can say whatever I want about those records? Does that mean that if I'm talking about it in public that it's okay?
I don't know, actually.
No, because at Tinker they actually are really specific on that when they go over this. They're like, if you go out to dinner and you're talking about the different records, they said that you could lose your job because you're not supposed to talk about confidential information outside of the work. So that was just one of the things that
confidential records, yeah.
Did you not have, what training did you have to take every year? Was that not one of them?
I was a journalist for about 9 years.
For Tinker? I mean, because you said that you were working on the
I worked for the Abu Dhabi Media Company. We started a newspaper called The
Okay.
National. I started the National in Abu Dhabi. I worked for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I was a stringer for the New York Times. I worked for
Wow.
some papers in London. We started a news agency in Glasgow and Edinburgh. Sold that, and then I moved back to the States. Decided I wanted to get out of the newspaper business.
Because of the traveling or the danger or?
No, I mean, the danger I kind of got off on. I was a war photographer for quite a while. I mean, the Arabic comes in handy when most of the wars are in Arabic-speaking places. The thing about it is that journalism jobs are dying, and what journalism jobs aren't dying are really technology related. And I already had the technology side of it. I wanted to come and do the security side of it, so I decided to do this instead of doing another master's degree. It's just way cheaper, it's more practical, and I don't really feel like putting up with all the nonsense you have to put up with for graduate school. So.
Totally understand. I actually didn't learn nearly as much for my master's as I did for either
This
my.
school, so I started at this school, ended up at Mizzou and then Columbia. And this school taught me more than any other place that I've ever gone to school.
This is by far the hardest degree that I got.
Yeah.
When I got my graduation ring, the only ring I got, the only one I usually wear, but I've lost too much weight, it falls off me now. The only one that I wore was the one for Rose State, and they do not have one for cybersecurity. So it actually says CyberSec on it because I had it custom made because that was the one, I mean, I wanted a degree. I decided to have kids instead, which was stupid. I don't really regret it too much because I love my kids, but that was my goal, was to go back. I said when my youngest was 5, I was going back. And then I thought that I would probably never go, but guess what? When she turned 5, I was back in school. So that was the most sought after, it meant the most to me than my other 2 degrees, so.
Yeah, once you have one, all the subsequent ones become nearly as
No,
much. I mean,
they
your
don't.
first one, that's the one where you graduate and you're like, oh my God, I just did it. You know, you
Yep.
went through either 2 or 4 or 6 years or whatever, however long it was. You know, you set this goal for yourself sometime in the future, and then you finish it, and that last day, you're just like, you take that last test, or you pass in that last.
And you just breathe a
dissertation.
sigh of relief, and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it's over
And
and
then
it's
you go
done.
get drunk.
I don't know if I wouldn't got drunk. I had 3 kids at home.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't had 3 kids at home, I probably would have. Privacy Act sets rules for the collection and maintenance, use, and dissemination of personal data kept in systems of records by federal agencies. Prohibits U.S. government agencies from concealing the existence of any personal data record-keeping system. Key privacy and anonymity issues. Data breaches. We haven't heard of any of those, have we? Electronic discovery, consumer profiling, workplace monitoring, advanced surveillance technology. So in some countries, they have cameras covering pretty much every single street, every single outdoor space.
In some countries, your internet is regulated by, in Abu Dhabi, for instance, the internet is, there are certain pages you'll go to, you'll type in something and up will pop this thing that says this website has been censored for your own protection. It's bizarre.
Oh, wow.
You grow up or you live in a Western country, although I was exposed to a lot of Western stuff in spite of living overseas, but you grow up in a fairly free country and you take all that shit for granted, and then you go someplace where you can't search things on the internet. And during Ramadan, I was smoking a Cuban cigar in my truck, and I was driving from Dubai to Abu Dhabi. It's like going from Tulsa to Oklahoma City. And Ramadan is like the Muslim, it's their big holiday. And during the day, the Muslims, they don't eat, drink, or smoke. They fast.
Oh, I didn't know they didn't smoke. So that's
Right.
Oh my
you're
gosh.
not, you're not, smoking is a sin anyways, according to Islam. But a cop, he was in his Range Rover, his $80,000 Range Rover, and I was in my Nissan Xterra or whatever, and I was smoking my cigar, and I was driving south, and he pulls up next to me, he sees me smoking, and I knew that I was smoking public, because I've grown up around Muslims my whole life, but I thought I could get away with it if I was in my own car and I was driving, I was going 80 miles an hour, 120 kilometers an hour. And I was on this huge highway that goes between the two. And he was in his private Range Rover, and he pulls me over. And first he follows me forever because he didn't have his lights, so he couldn't pull me over. And he finally gets me over, and I decide to play the stupid Westerner. Can't speak a lick of Arabic. Meanwhile, I know exactly what he's saying, and he writes me a ticket for smoking in public. I still have the ticket. I decided to have it framed instead of paying it. So,
Oh, you didn't pay it?
I did eventually, but I had the ticket framed. And in that country, all your traffic tickets, you don't have to pay them right away if you don't want to. They go on your tab, and when you register your car at the end of the year, you just pay them all off at once.
Oh, wow.
Part of my job was test driving all the supercars because our newspaper was a luxury newspaper. So we would test drive like the Bugatti Veyrons and the Ferrari FXXs, and we destroyed an $800,000 McLaren in the desert going 150 miles an hour in a pothole. But with those cars, you don't get pulled over. They have speed cameras. So the cops have no idea who you are. You might, be a shade or something like that. So they don't even want to take a chance and pull you over. So they just let the speed cameras do it. And the year you paid off, or your employer is.
Wow. That's definitely different. Okay, so what are data breaches caused by? Come on, y'all know this. You're in cybersecurity.
Failures to follow proper security procedures.
Okay.
Your servers.
So, what is your weakest link? Is it a hacker?
No, it's internal employers.
It's your allies.
It's your users? I mean, some of them are pretty darn stupid. I mean, you can tell them don't click on something and they're going to click on it anyway. When I was trying to make my video to tell what cybersecurity was from Middale Technology Center, one of the things I stole some of Ken's slides because he has some really awesome emails that he can use as an example. So when you get an email from your bank, what do?
You go to your bank's website and not click any links from the.
Okay, so that's probably not the best example. So what I tell my students is always hover before you click on anything because a lot of times it'll actually pop up and show you what the address is so that you can actually see. So one of the ones that I did, you couldn't really see it from the back of the classroom, but it said, should you click on this and it looked like a Facebook page? Or should you enter your information on this? And everybody's like, yes. Well, the next slide took them over, and it shows that when you actually zoom in on it, it was Facebook, not Facebook.
For 90% of people, you don't even have to be that clever. You just have to ask them for their password. No matter how many times you tell people, don't ever give anyone your password. Don't ever give anyone your PIN to your ATM card. If you just ask them in the right way, they'll give it to you. It's like, hey, we're doing a security audit. We need your username and password to make sure that you're in compliance with an acceptable use policy. Sure, no problem. They'll email it to you.
Yeah, I had users tell me that they'll just give me their PIN all the time. And it's like, no, I don't want it.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, no, they do that all the time. There was something else I was going to say, but I don't even remember what it was now. Totally lost it. Health Information Technology and Economic Clinical Health Act mandates that within 60 days after discovery of a data breach, individuals whose health information has been exposed must be notified. E-discovery. Consumer profiling. Do we have any consumer profiling?
Facebook ads.
Yeah. Like if you go to Amazon and you're searching for something and you pop back over to Facebook, guess what you're going to see on Facebook? What you were searching for. Workplace monitoring. They get away with that mostly because, well, they've told you, plus they're liable for anything that you've done. Camera surveillance, deter crime and terrorist activities. Does it work? I don't think it really does much in the way of deterring unless they actually look up and they're like, ooh, there's a camera here. I don't want to do anything illegal.
I mean, like, TSA at airports has, as far as I'm aware, not caught a single terrorist.
I haven't heard that they have.
They
But
caught me. I had a little pocket knife like that, except it was the tiny one, the one that's this big.
yeah, you can't bring a knife on.
Right.
But
know,
I mean, if you ever go to the TSA website,
Yeah.
look at some of the stuff that they've actually found people with.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's weapons all over the place. So they do catch things that you probably would not want to have on. You would probably not want to have on the plane with
It's
you.
security theater though. I mean, if anyone gets on a plane nowadays and starts whipping a knife around, the passengers are going to bomb rush them. I mean, that's the line of defense.
Yeah, especially after 9/11. I mean, people aren't going to just sit back and thinking, oh yeah, we're going to be fine. No,
Yeah.
because you know that if they hijack a plane, more than likely you're going to die.
Yeah.
You might as well take them out.
Something, but
Yeah. Vehicle event data recorder.
black ones.
Yep. And a lot of companies now have GPS devices in the like a black box that they can tell exactly where you've gone.
Like Progressive, the insurance company's little tracking.
Yeah.
Yeah, a snapshot from Progressive.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
We actually got the little black box that you plug in and you drive around with it for a while so that we can get better insurance because we're safe drivers.
That's exactly what we
Yeah, well, most of my driving is getting on the interstate, going to work, and then getting on the interstate to go back home. I don't do a lot of other driving. A little bit in the city, but not much. And apparently my acceleration to get on the interstate excluded me for a lot of the discounts. So Ken complained, but I'm like, I had to get on the interstate.
You know, when it
getting on
goes that slow,
is getting on an on-ramp unsafe apparently.
Well, because I picked up speed too quickly.
what they're tracking is not where you're at. When I talked to them about it, they said what we're looking for is to see whether when you come to a stop, you come to a complete stop. If your car registers 0 miles an hour and you wait for 3 seconds, for instance, for stopping, or when you're accelerating from a stop, you're accelerating in a safe manner, or your turn signal is on when you take a left turn, or you turn into the correct lane when you turn in, take a right turn. They said that's what they were looking for. It was not
Yeah,
necessarily
but
where you are.
Ken looked, and the thing that they were complaining about on mine was the acceleration.
Yeah.
So if I had stopped doing, getting on the interstate every day and just taking back roads while they were actually checking it, I probably would have been fine, but I didn't want to take the time to do that because it takes so much longer. But like some companies, if you have a company vehicle, then they will track to see where you are. So like I took the one for Mid-Dell Technology for a short period of time to do New Teacher Academy, and I was told that I could not drive it home. So if I had not listened and I had actually driven it home, they could have tracked to see where I drove it, just because, well, it's a school thing. They
Yeah,
have.
I got another class.
Oh, it's 6:55. It's just now ending. Okay, so we're done. We were almost done anyway. We only had like 2 slides left. No, 1 slide. We only had 1 slide left.
The summary.
Well, no, it was the stalking app.
Oh yeah.
All right, y'all have a wonderful night.